drift softly over snowy soil, bewitching and seducing all those unfortunate enough to be in earshot. And before they even sense it, they find themselves frozen to the ground. Helpless as their life is drained away. How the song ends, they will never know. For this minstrel shall never refrain.
What's good, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and today, ladies and gents, we're going to be playing some more Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and we are going to be tackling the Aurora Somnicanth. Now, the Somnacanth, when it originally debuted in the base version of Monster Hunter Rise, was an amazing monster, had all kinds of super unique things going for it, and it was quite the nifty little attacker. Now, Aurora Somnicanth is a subspecies of Somnacanth, and the thing, in my opinion, that made Somnacanth so unique and like a breath of fresh air is sadly missing from this guy. So let's very briefly talk about what Somnacanth really does and what Aurora Somnicanth does instead. Now, Somnacanth was I guess you can call like a banshee type of thing that would kind of swim around. It would use different types of shells to do different types of attacks. It would either pull a type of shell that would like stun you, a type of shell that would actually use the blast blight, whole sorts of different kind of cool things, and it would swim and do a bunch of cool stuff or whatever. Now, Somnacanth Aurora Somnicanth doesn't necessarily have any of these things. It doesn't have the shells to do all the cool shell things that it had, which is fine because it's what Somnacanth did. This is what Aurora Somnicanth is, and Aurora Somnicanth doesn't necessarily swim in the same fashion that normal Somnacanth does. So for the most part, let's look at what it does in and of itself, as opposed to looking at what made it not regular Somnacanth, which in and of itself is the same exact thing, but nevertheless. So Aurora Somnicanth is an ice-faring monster. It has a couple of interesting ice attacks. Some of them you can call them akin to what lovingly the monster community refers to as farts, where a monster will have like usually it's a gas, usually like a fire explosion that expels from underneath their underbelly, but in this case it's ice, if you will, really cold icy air. You know, let's call it that, icy air. It'll expend this from his body in very much the same fashion. It does this in about 3 different attacks, and it also has an ice beam. Now, outside of these 2 particular attacks that it has, the gas, if you will, the ice fart, if you want to call it that, isn't too crazy. It is a 360 effect, so you kind of have to block it really nice, and unless you want to get hit with the dumb stuff. The ice beam, it shoots it in 2 fashions. It has one where it will lay on all 4s, if you want to call it all 4s, and shoot the beam. It has the one where it will curl up on its tail, kind of get a little bit of height, and then kind of shoot the beam in that regard. Usually when it does that one though, it aims downwards, whereas the other one is aiming straight out. Now, the 3rd attack it has, it's a pretty interesting attack. It's its signature ability, if you want to call it that, where the camera will pan out quite a bit, and then you'll see like your screen will get a little foggy, like the whole screen will get a little foggy. And if you look at the ground, there'll be small tufts of more condensed, like cold areas, where you'll see that it's going to do a really big attack. This big attack is not really too crazy, but it shoots out it's a wave, if you will, a fan pattern of ice balls that just manifest on those icy areas. You don't really get to see it in this gameplay footage. I did actually record some footage when it usually does it. It doesn't do it too often. You may see it once a hunt, maybe twice a hunt or something like that, but it isn't too rare for it to actually do it, but you may end up seeing it. Now, the one way to, if anything, win against this particular attack is 2 things. 1, you can either use a flash bomb, it'll stop it doing from whatever it's doing right there, or 2, if you get really close to it when it's doing this, the hitboxes for all these attacks don't hit you at all, and it's basically free hits on the monster. Now, outside of that, Aurora Somnicanth isn't too extra. Truth be told, that's basically all there really is about Aurora Somnicanth. There's not a whole lot to it. It does have a couple of attacks that when it's throwing its body at you, use this tail to do a couple of things that's kind of annoying. It has this one attack where it will charge at you, then charge around you, and then slam its tail down on you. That can get kind of annoying if you don't know how to block it correctly. It also has one attack where it's like a giant belly flop that to the untrained eye looks like one attack, but it actually hits twice. So watch out for it. in this gameplay, I get hit with it a couple times because I think it's a singular attack when it's actually multiples. It's kind of odd. You know, certain attacks that hit 2 times for reasons that's unexplained, like certain beams that hit multiple times, whatever, like fire breaths and such like that. It's kind of one of those. But whenever it does this big belly flop thing, it's kind of easy to avoid if you're not sitting right up underneath it. You can actually jump forward. Like if you know the monster's going to land directly on top of you, because that's what monsters do, they land directly on you. Like right before it actually leaps and does its attack, if you move forward, it'll actually miss you. The hitbox forward is actually in the front as opposed to the entirety of the body. So you can actually walk just out of range of it and still be literally duct taped to the monster's body and take no damage. Very, very useful. It'll save your hide. It saved my hide a couple of times when I went for grinding this monster's armor parts, well, grinding for this monster's armor and weapons and such. Speaking of armor and weapon and such, its gear is kinda meh. So for Somnacanth armor, I want to be very, very clear in saying that the armor itself isn't totally bad. There's a lot of good things that it has. The most notable is Master's Touch, which is an excellent ability that allows you to not lose your sharpness to your weapon if you hit the monster for a critical hit. Now, it has 3 tiers to it, but for the most part, this is what it says. You also get Agitator 5, which is Max Agitator, which gives you plus 20 attack and plus 15 affinity when a monster is pissed off. So it kind of works with a Master's Touch. That way you can actually have that proc more often. Then you get Crit Element, which is exactly what it sounds. Gives you a critical damage to your elemental attacks when you hit a monster. So for example, I think a Crit 3 gives you 15% extra damage. So that's actually pretty solid. And lastly, you get Ice Attack, which is, you know, just more ice. You know, so I mean, the skills that it gives aren't terrible. It's just that there's certain abilities that work better with others that would work better if it had more skills attached to it. So for the most part, the only thing to really take away from this is probably Agitator and Master's Touch, and everything else you can kind of just throw to the wayside. Now, I'm not saying its armor is totally bad, but when you couple it with its weapons, sure, you're gonna get weapons with a lot of element. Like currently the dual blades that I'm rocking right now have 71. It's really cool. It has potential to have white sharpness on its weapons as well. It's just as it stands, you're not the best in the, you know, in its particular rank, but for the most part, it'll get the job done. And it's not supposed to be a grand world beater of a monster. It's literally just a tier 2 monster, just something to get you on your way as far as the weapons and the armor itself goes. But just remember, Master's Touch is one of the best skills you have in the game, and I would recommend it for a meta build for sure. Okay, so to recap, Somnacanth isn't like the world's greatest monster to ever exist, but it does have a lot of cool things going for it. Now, to do the damage you want to do to this monster, obviously you're going to have to hit it in the head. But to be very, very frank, its biggest weak spot is actually its neck, which is kind of hard to truly and earnestly hit because for the most part, to really hit the neck, you have to come at it from the side. And this is a monster who likes to really get directly in front of you or get behind you. So maneuvering around to get to that one particular part is going to be kind of odd. So for the most part, aim for the head, aim for the big headdress, aim for the neck if you can hit it. That's going to be your biggest damage. You're going to want to bring the fire element to do the most of it. And for the most part, you're going to just smack it to death. It has a couple of attacks that are really notable. It has a pretty decent beam. It does have the gas, well, not the gassy, the ice, frost, air, cold air, the air puffs, the ice farts. Okay, I'm trying not to use ice farts because it's dumb, but it has the ice farts. It has ice farts in 3 different manners. Remember that you have to actually block them or just not get hit with them altogether because it goes in 360 degree hitboxer on its body, so it's kind of tough to like try to stay in unless you can or cannot block it. Outside of that, it does have the big super attack, which is the ice ball explosion things that I told you about. You'll see them. You will literally see it when it happens. Camera pans out, let you know something big's about to happen. Your screen literally fogs up, and you'll see like condensed sections on the floor around you that have like real cold air just billowing from it. And from those exact spots, it'll just manifest giant like ice crystals or something you want to call it like that. It does have this other attack where it kind of shoots smaller ice crystals, but that is the most... Man, you ain't ever getting hit with that attack ever. I don't even know why it even has that attack. I didn't even do anything notable with it. But outside of that, that is essentially Ice Somnicanth. Aurora Somnicanth. Not the world's greatest monster. Not really something you want to pay much attention to. It does have a bit of potential with its armor sets, and its weapons aren't too terrible. They have really high element, and they can be upgraded as far as like sharpness goes to actually run a whole lot of white if you have great handicraft. But for the most part, this is definitely one of those monsters that doesn't necessarily change the world, but it's kind of there to use as like a stepping stone to get to where you need to be. But with that being said, everyone, it's been your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself. Thank you so much for watching this video today. We have a couple of other videos going on for you guys. I'm trying to get 3 of these out a week, which isn't too impossible to do. It just means I have to kind of work at it mostly at on my leisure times. But I'm trying to get 3 out to you guys. The whole plan is to completely finish the monster decks before the first DLC monsters come in, so that way I'm caught up and I'm actually making videos on time and on par with things as they actually manifest and come out to you guys. So thank you for supporting your boy. I am promising you that I'm gonna get this done as fast as I can. I think in a week and a half from I'm currently speaking, I do have like 5 days vacation, and I know vacation is for, you know, vacation, everything, blah blah blah, whatever, but I'm gonna use a lot of that time to get caught up on a lot of these videos, so that way we are at the front of what we need to be, so that way we can get all the things done as fast as possible and move on to bigger, better, and more creative works for Monster Hunter. But with that being said, everyone, of course, like I said before, it's been your boy. Thank you so much for coming and kicking with me today. And with that being said, may the desire sensor forever be in your favor, because grinding for certain monster parts like this game doesn't like me. Rare drops don't happen. It's tough. So the desire sensor is not in my favor, but hopefully it's in yours.